Hello there, and welcome to episode 4 of the Star Wars Universe podcast. I'm your host, James, and in this episode, we have a conversation with a listener who has been listening from the beginning, Josh Hoyt. Very good conversation it was as well, and I very much appreciated his time. So at this point in time, I'm going to hand back to past James and hear what him and Josh have to say. And with me this month, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Josh Hoyt, a listener from the beginning, which, to be fair, wasn't that long ago. But thank you, Josh, for joining us. We spoke very, very early on about you coming on the cast, and I'm glad it's finally happened. How are you?
I'm great. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here today. Big fan. I got to hear about your podcast through the Saga Continues because I follow those guys and interact with them online. And I just love talking to and listening to people who are actually positive about Star Wars and not negative. So,
yeah, absolutely, and that's certainly the vibe I'm going for here. It's if I don't like something, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Not everything is going to be for me, and if someone out there can get some joy from it, then that makes me happy. So yep. It's I can find joy in Star Wars from multiple different avenues. So it's not necessarily all about my own personal consumption. So it's definitely want to keep this a positive space, and yeah, no, I really appreciate you hopping on and joining me for this little interview segment that seem to be doing every episode at the moment. So we'll jump right in. So when did you first get into Star Wars?
So for me, I'm 45. So one of my most anticipated gifts for the holidays when I was a little kid was the Millennium Falcon. So, getting the Millennium Falcon and the X-Wing and TIE Fighter and my Darth Vader figurine holder, that was my first experience. For me was the toys because, it was every kid was playing with it. And then, getting the first time I ever went to the movies to see one was Return of the Jedi when I was 5. So, I remember it vividly, couldn't wait. The projector broke an hour into the movie and they couldn't fix it. So we had to come back the next day. First Return of the Jedi was my first movie experience. And for me, it's just been an everlasting love ever since then.
Brilliant. I'll be honest with you, that's kind of knocked my second question on the head. So we'll just combine the two, because it was what was your first interaction outside of the movie or stroke TV shows, and it's obviously the toys is what your in was, which is great. Obviously, it's kind of an assumption that everyone will get in via the movies in some way. But the fact that you got into it via the toys is brilliant. It just shows everyone that there's no true entry into the fandom, I guess. It's or no obvious way. It's just however you discover it is however you discover it. But yeah, you're saying some of the things there, like the Millennium Falcon, the TIE Fighter, the Darth Vader figure case.
AT-AT or AT-AT, whatever you want to call it. That was, to me, even though I won the Millennium Falcon, once I got that, going out in the snow as a kid and just reliving the Hoth battle was and then incorporating G.I. Joe like Snowcat into that was like the greatest my own cinematic universe as a kid. So
they call it playing in the sandbox for a reason, don't they?
Yep.
So it's and in your case it was a snowbox. Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic to hear that. And there's so many different ways to get into it, and the toys. Certainly George Lucas would have been happy with you picking up a number of toys, because that was obviously he struck the deal of a lifetime.
Yeah, what kills me is they're when I moved out and out of my parents' house years ago, my mom still had them, but they got water damage in their basement and they all got mold and destroyed, and now I just huddle in the fetal position in a corner thinking about that. So.
Devastating to hear, but probably not a very uncommon story either.
Yeah.
So obviously original trilogy is sort of your era of entry. What were your thoughts on the prequels when they came out and the build up to it? Because obviously there was a huge sort of toy ramp up as well in the years preceding, and the build up of Heir to the Empire and various other novels coming out and things like that. So what were your initial thoughts? Because there's always that split feelings about the sequel trilogy at the moment, which I'm kind of looking at going, we'll revisit that in 10 to 15 years and see what people actually think about it. Because I was a prequel kid. Yeah, I remember living through this isn't Star Wars. The original trilogy is the only thing that's Star Wars and all the rest of it. And and I grew up going, no, this is my Star Wars. This is what I'm growing up with. And looking back now, obviously there's a lot more people out there my age that sort of minded. So what were your thoughts on when the prequels were announced and were coming out and you were actually seeing them?
So I was thrilled. I mean, for me, I was in college. So what was so awesome for me, like just going a little bit before the prequels, is they re-released the original trilogy in theaters before the prequels came out. So I had never seen Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back in a movie theater because I was too little. So being able to go and watch the sequel trilogy in the theaters was unbelievable. Like Empire Strikes Back in a theater, other than Avengers Endgame, perhaps might be the to me, like the and maybe Infinity War, the greatest theatrical moments. Like I was at Penn State in college at the time, and the theater was sold out, and people were literally hooting and hollering. And I'm not a hooting and holler at movies because I like to hear stuff, but it was so energetic and awesome. So it just made the excitement for the prequels that much energetic. And I was one of those people who I was first in line. Even dressed up as Darth Maul for the Phantom Menace in college for that. And at first, like I really enjoyed the Phantom Menace. I loved it. I wish Darth Maul was in it a little bit more, but I loved it. Attack of the Clones, I was with, but still enjoyed it. And Revenge of the Sith, I loved. And I still was one of those people that, the original trilogy is still the greatest thing ever, blah, blah, blah. And then during COVID, I worked from home most of the time. I ended up watching the Clone Wars, and because I never got a chance to really watch that. And when I watched the Clone Wars, I absolutely fell in love with the prequel trilogy because of that, because of how much storytelling was done. And for me right now, and even my son will say the same thing, Revenge of the Sith is our favorite Star Wars movie. And it is. And people don't realize like just how, I don't want to say it's adult oriented, but the adult storytelling that's there in the Clone Wars that just helps to really, I don't want to say fill in the gaps, but just provide you with a little bit more clarity on the prequel trilogy. I think if people watch that, people would have a lot more respect for the prequel trilogy. I understand people who may not like certain things. I mean, to me, Empire Strikes Back is to me is like the pinnacle of Star Wars, but movie wise and lightsaber fights and story, and I have a picture. My son and I this summer went to the fandom thing in Philadelphia. We got our picture taken with Hayden Christensen because we just love that movie so very, very much. So that would be my take. Attack of the Clones, I'm still like, I'll watch if it's on, I'll watch it. But like to me, that's the one that's the weakest out of them. But I still enjoy it because I love Mace Windu, and I love just how they build up the clones. And when you watch that Clone Wars, the clones themselves become a real emotional arc, and people that you appreciate, and people who are watching stuff now, if you really want to know who Captain Rex was, that's your opportunity to go back and learn so much about that. So
yeah, and I love the fact that taking Captain Rex specifically, they've kind of retconned him into Return of the Jedi, because there's obviously that guy with the big beard, and, they've just gone, yeah, that's Rex. And it's like,
it's great.
Why not?
Yeah.
And so Rex has been throughout from the beginning of the Clone Wars, because obviously he's a Gen 1 clone, all the way through to at least the Battle of Endor. And what he does after that, we don't know. We didn't see him in Ahsoka, did we? But for me, the love and care that was taken with the Clone Wars is out of this world. I feel very similar to you in terms of probably ranking of the prequel trilogy. Episode 3 is by far and away my favorite Star Wars film. When you watch that, having seen the Clone Wars, it just builds and it adds so many more different layers, and especially that little moment in season 7 where Ahsoka has the conversations, the hollow conversations with Obi-Wan, with the council. They're taken straight out of the film. And those moments, and so it just adds, again, layer upon layer. And absolute hats off to D. Bradley Baker, who voices the clones. He has been able to, through the Bad Batch as well.
Love the Bad Batch. Yep.
Yeah,
love it.
He's been able to create like different personalities and different, almost, it's the same voice, but they're different voices.
Yep.
And that is a skill that I don't think many people truly appreciate, and certainly don't laud it enough. He's absolutely fantastic at what he does, and what he's done with Fives and Rex and Jesse and there's just so many, isn't there? There's Cody, but and now it's being taken that one step further into live action with Tamura Morrison coming back as well. And even though it's not D. Bradley Baker, it's still Tamura Morrison doing a D. Bradley Baker impression almost, isn't it? Just to keep that continuity going, and it's absolutely phenomenal addition to sort of the between episode 2 and 3.
Even the Bad Batch, like you look at when that got announced, I was like, all right, I liked that episode. I don't know what are they going to do with this. And when the Bad Batch season 2 ended, like I sent a message to Tim over at the Saga Continues and just went, I need it tomorrow. Like I need season 3 now. Like I started my watch when the Mandalorian and Bad Batch were overlapping. I started it by I watched the Bad Batch first, and then I watched Mando second. Halfway through the season, I flipped it. Because I couldn't wait to watch the Bad Batch, because it was just, and I still love Mando, but Bad Batch just, I don't know for what reason, the storytelling and how it just became so emotional and so family oriented, and just the storyline, it was just so amazing, and such a fun show to watch.
Couldn't agree with you more. Who's your favorite Bad Batch member? Then it's a little extra bonus question I'll throw in.
Oh, it's Hunter. Yeah,
okay.
I love, big fan of Hunter. I mean, Crosshairs is very intriguing. That was the only thing, like I thought they turned him quick, but Crosshairs, I just like how he's short to the point and very analytical. And Hunter, to me, just I love that whole, he's kind of like Rambo, but also just kind of a leader people follow and respect, and how he kind of changed from this hardcore Rambo-like person to this dad. You know, he just reminds me so much of like Din Djarin. Like he really took on like a very similar arc to Din Djarin.
Couldn't agree with you more on there. My personal favorite is Tech, but yeah, no. In terms of what you're saying about the Attack of the Clones episode 2 stuff being the weakest, I would probably agree with you. I think there's some very, very important developments within that film that, if you take out all of the really bad sort of romantic dialogue, like George Lucas is on record saying he can't write romance, and that is abundantly clear from that film. If you take a lot of that out and just sort of look at it as like the big set pieces, it's a phenomenal film.
Oh, it is. I mean, Christopher Lee's Count Dooku in there. I mean, he was a top 3 villain. I mean, he was
absolutely,
he was amazing. You know, and how it built up. It just built up the threat of the loomingness of the Empire. Absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, there were some parts in it that I truly loved. I mean, there was some great interactions with Grievous and Obi-Wan in there that were phenomenal. And you know, just you really saw just setting the stage of the Empire. But yeah, so it's just some of those romance things. It was like, okay, we get it, right? You know, what I felt bad about that, I remember, is people crushed Hayden Christensen, and it wasn't him. It was just the writing, and he did what he was given. And I felt so bad for him. I really did. Still to this day, I told him that when I met him. Like I said, I loved him and I appreciate everything he did, and I was always in his corner. So
yeah, and there's I'm so glad that Hayden's come back to the franchise and been welcomed with such love and appreciation from the fans. And I will say Ahmed Best as well has received that as well. Absolutely. And obviously with his sort of redemption performance as Keller and Beck. And I know they're never going to bring him back into the franchise in any format because of the problems that were indirectly caused by Star Wars. But I really hope they make good with Jake Lloyd as well, because his portrayal as little Anakin was, I thought, fantastic.
Yeah.
And he was in my top 5 favorite things of that film.
I teared up for Hayden Christensen when Star Wars Celebration, when they brought him out. I wasn't there, but I watched the live tube. You was like, my wife had drove her nuts. She's like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, it can't be there, so I have to watch it, right? And when they brought him out, and he just took that little pause, and you could see like him just swallow his Adam's apple. I teared up for him because he is so deserving of that, because people don't realize that his lightsaber improvisations and what he does on his own are come right from the heart and passion, and are just flat out amazing. Like, people haven't watched the behind the scenes stuff on what he does with a lightsaber. You have to do that, because it is phenomenal.
Well, he invented that move, didn't he? The Anakin twirl, as it's now known, and he invented that, and he threw himself into that development with Nick Gillard, was it, the Swordmaster from the prequels? Yeah, he threw himself into that with Ewan McGregor as well, and what they created with the Mustafar fight is legendary in my view. It's absolutely legendary, and they're going to have to go away to top that in either live action or animation for me. I think the closest they've come to it for me personally is Ahsoka versus Maul in season 7 of the Clone Wars. That was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I just hope something can be done about Jake Lloyd to kind of bring that man some peace, because that was the bad side of the fandom, wasn't it? That was one of the best teasers of that. You want to talk about one of the best movie poster teasers of all time? In the desert,
and the shadow of Vader in the background on the side. I mean, I haven't found anything that comes close to a visual of teasing something like that. The closest thing Star Wars that I found to that was in the Ahsoka episode, where it was doing the Clone Wars flashbacks, and Anakin's walking, and they tease that. That's what it reminded me of, was that.
Yeah.
But a still teaser that just tells you everything is such a cool. I have that poster in my basement at home. It's so cool.
It was certainly one I had on my wall. Unfortunately, I've probably lost it now to time. But I think the only other thing I can immediately think of, because it has to be Anakin to Vader, doesn't it? It has to be that image. And yeah, as you say, that moment in Ahsoka where he's walking away and he sort of flashes to Vader and back again is absolutely sublime. In the Mortis arc, when the brother and he sort of screams no, and he's doing the desperation,
and you see the cloud come
and you see the cloud become Vader's helmet. That's the only other iconic image I think I could have ever put on it. But I think it's something, obviously both being parents, there's something visceral about it being Anakin as a child with that shadow looming over him, and it's like that's Shmi's child's destiny.
Yeah, and that's why if you watch the Clone Wars, it becomes that more emotional, because you just see all the good he did, and all the things all the stories he was involved in, and the choices he made. And people, without watching that, people's knowledge base is just based upon those movies.
Well, you just have to go on the fact that he's known as the hero with no fear, and it's all just kind of hearsay, isn't it? It is fantastic the way the Clone Wars fleshes out let's face it, it was such a throwaway line in A New Hope, wasn't it? And then however many tens of years later we get that series, and it just fleshes out the entire process and the layering of the stories and all the different characters, and just an absolutely sublime piece of story writing as well. And it transitioned through the Disney acquisition, which could have completely derailed it, and it didn't. That's a credit to Dave Filoni, who kind of obviously straddled that fence, played on both sides of it through that process, and obviously he's getting his just rewards now with the Mandoverse and the pending movie. So very much looking forward to that coming out, and just some more news on it, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've spoken about Anakin at length. Who is your favorite character?
It is Anakin. So I mean, I think that's clear. I'm not somebody who I'm not somebody who goes and meets celebrities. Like that was a one and doneer for me, and the only other person that I would ever consider doing that would be Chris Evans, because I have my Captain America shield on the wall. But for me, it was just that you always wondered, like when Obi-Wan, when you're a kid and you're watching that, and he talks about Anakin Skywalker, my father was a Jedi, and he was this great pilot, and He fought in the Clone Wars, like all that stuff that we never knew we were going to get. And then, you watch that story, and for me, it was always Luke. And then when I watched the Clone Wars, it became Anakin because of just how much more story was told. And then when it continued in the Obi-Wan series, and I know people had some mixed things about that, but I just absolutely loved that series. And that line of, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, was just like, I have probably watched that episode 30 times because the light, just the acting, but his story of just such struggle. He did what he did for love. He did what he did to protect, and you said, like you said, we're parents. Like, you think about what would you do to save your family? And I'm not saying I would go around slaughtering people or slaughter children, but but
hopefully you might have taken it a bit far.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just that as a parent, my kids are 13 and 10, and when they face struggles, the things that you want to do to help them, and but also that power that he wielded, and now knowing that he was also a teacher and a Padawan, like he started to put all those things together, and the relationship he had with Rex, and how he viewed Obi-Wan as a brother, but I think also as a father both way, and as a best friend, and just all of those different people. When he makes that line of like, when he says to Ahsoka that everything that's a part of me is now a part of you, and you think about all those people that impacted him, it's just like, to me, like, he is just one of the most intriguing movie characters of all time, because Darth Vader is probably the most recognized villain in movie history, but a lot of people don't understand Anakin Skywalker, and that's the part that I love. I love the Anakin Skywalker part of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's such a complex character, but his goals are so simple.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the brilliance of Anakin Skywalker. Even before the Clone Wars came out, and we got all of this information, like the novels that were written about him. So there's one called Jedi Trial, which is, I can't remember who it's by. Basically, him going from Padawan to Knight, and the trial he goes through, and it's, you really see even in that the bond he develops with the clones, and the bond which he was hoping to have with Obi-Wan against the bond he actually had with Obi-Wan, which, if obviously Qui-Gon hadn't lost the Duel of the Fates, then it would have been a very clear Qui-Gon as a father figure, Obi-Wan as a brother figure, and the Jedi Order as his extended family. And I think obviously there is part of me that does want and doesn't want a what if series. But I think there's some real interesting stories they could tell.
Oh, 100%, yes. That was the first thing my son said. He's like, when we watched What If for Marvel, he said, "Dad, could you imagine if they made a what if Anakin stayed on the light side?" I'm like, that's a pretty cool idea. Yeah, you're right.
It's just purely of I think it would just hinge on what if Qui-Gon beat Maul. Like, the way Qui-Gon viewed the Force is so unique to that era of Jedi. Obviously, we're exploring the High Republic era at the moment, and there's a lot of different ways of viewing the Force that have been highlighted through Phase 1 and 2 of that. And hopefully we get more of that information in Phase 3. It's so interesting how Qui-Gon viewed it and how Dooku viewed it as well, because I think Dooku viewed it very, very similarly. Obviously trained Qui-Gon and took him on as a Padawan for a reason. And the Tales of the Jedi sort of touch on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm desperate for more stories about
I agree. I would love to see Tales from the Sith. I would love to see a Tales from the Sith series as well, just to see a different side up at that.
Yeah, I think they can go whichever way they want with that. I think there's enough stories to sort of tell a number of seasons of Tales of the Jedi, focusing on the relevant Jedi, and specifically, I would love some episodes on Yoda. Obviously, he's my personal favorite. But
I would love to see things like around the path, and how maybe they tried to save Jedi during the purge, and there's all these little hints and seeds they put in there about all these potential little stories they could tell. So
yeah, no, for sure, absolutely, and I'm desperate. I'll happily take any storytelling they give. they'll get to what I want them to get to eventually, and I
Yeah.
will enjoy it at that time. There's no rush. We've got the rest of our lives, really. So obviously we've spoken a lot about characters. So obviously the next obvious question, which is they are virtually characters in themselves. Do you have a favorite ship?
I don't know if you classify this as a ship, like I said, the AT-AT or AT-AT, whatever you want to call it. That is my
Ship
favorite
vehicle.
is by far. Like that, I mean, that was the all-time greatest toy because of just what it could do. But you cannot go anywhere, at least I can't go anywhere in the snow without envisioning and seeing one of those things. Like it's just such a menacing vehicle for them to use. The sound, and it's like, it's like Jurassic Park with robots. Like it is the best way to describe it. And
Yeah.
just how menacing and how huge they were. Like it's just a really amazing, and how they were taken down. Like the creativity of taking them down was obviously really neat. But and then what I love about it is how in the sequel trilogy they modified those based upon what they learned about how they came down. So, but yeah, to me those will always be like to me an absolute favorite one. Now I do a lot of Lego Star Wars and Lego Marvel, and like that's my that's my creme de la creme is my Lego Star Wars AT-AT. So
one of the sort of 2 or 3 crown jewels I had in my Lego Star Wars collection was the motorized AT-AT.
Yeah.
And I always used to like get it walking across my room, and with Luke hanging off the belly and stuff like that. And I loved that build. It was so much fun.
I used to have it like we had a little dog, and I used to just go there, like you stick your hand in with the toy, you'd be able to maul around, and the dog would bark and go nuts.
But yes, yeah, no, and I seem to have been immersing myself a little bit in AT-ATs recently. Like literally in the last couple of days, I've been listening to From a Certain Point of View, Empire Strikes Back, and I'm at that point in Hoth where it's all around the AT-AT and taking it down, and sort of the arrogance of the drivers and things like that. And I've also been playing Jedi Fallen Order recently, and I got to drive an AT-AT, and I was sat there doing it with the biggest grin on my face. And I think my wife came downstairs and went, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm driving an AT-AT. I'm so happy. And it's actually getting to do the guns and everything. It is different from just sort of being in the third person view in like a Lego Star Wars game where you get to sort of like clump around and shoot things, where you're actually in the cockpit and seeing it.
It's different. Yep.
Very, very good. I felt a bit bad about blowing up quite a lot of Kashyyyk, but not too bad to stop. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the AT-ATs as well. It's they're probably one of my favorite ground vehicles going, and definitely a good choice. So I think I probably know the answer to this, given where the conversation has gone so far. But do you have a favorite era at all?
It is tough. Like my favorite Star Wars series arc is Rebels. Like that is like when I look at, like, if you start something and you not end it, but like where it left off, but what it did from characters, story, relationships, lore, all that is Star Wars Rebels. If you go to the movie side of things, I'm still an original trilogy person, but the prequels are right there. So they really are. They're right there.
Do you throw Rogue One in when you say original trilogy?
Oh, 100%. Yes,
yeah.
100%. Like, to me, Rogue One is a gift you get from a relative that you never see, that you were not expecting. And when you opened it, you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest gift I've ever gotten.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was one of the first times that I walked out of a movie when I was done and immediately bought a ticket and went right back in to watch it again, was Rogue One. I was so bummed when they announced that Andor was being pushed off for another year the other day, but it'll be here. So it'll be
consequence of the writer and actors strike, which it's that bittersweet, isn't it? Because obviously you want them to have the pay they deserve, but also you don't want to. Please don't delay my Star Wars.
Yes. I support what they did, but selfish and as a consumer. So
absolutely. But as you say, it'll be here before we know it, and we've got a couple of things next year, haven't we? We've got the Acolyte. I think Bad Batch has been pushed, which is a shame. We've got something else as well. I can't think.
Still waiting for them to announce. Yeah, I'm waiting for the Bad Batch announcement, hopefully, and then I think
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, Skeleton Crew. Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. Yeah, because
that's set
in the Mandoverse.
In the
Yep.
Mandoverse, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I have mixed feelings about Jude Law. So I'll give it a go. It's Star Wars, so I'll always give it a go. And if I don't like it, then I'll persevere and make sure I just tick it off my completed list, sort of thing.
I mean, for what they've given, I can't not support what they're going to put out there because of the track record has just been that good. So
absolutely. Whilst I've been obviously quite vocal in recent episodes that Andor wasn't really for me, I might actually change my tune on that, because I very much see it as I've only seen half of it so far, and I can't really, because it was being talked about as being released as one long season. They decided to cut it in half, which naturally is going to make it slower because they're obviously stretching it out to fill out 2 seasons. And I think my personal view on it is it suffered for that. But I also appreciate that a lot of people absolutely loved it. And that's brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. And I am reserving my judgment. There were moments in that series blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. And I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I really enjoyed seeing like the inner workings of the Empire.
Yeah.
That really intrigued me.
You see the ruthlessness and the very sinister and sinister side, but the cutthroat. Like, I forget the actor. He's in so many different movies, but the one who played basically the head of the ISB, like, he was just, his scenes were great. Like, he was just phenomenal. And you know how, you know, when he says to Deidre, just, you know, watch your back, like, you know, that was just like, yep, that's exactly what a cutthroat organization is like. So
did he play Filch in Harry Potter?
I think he did. Like, I know he was just in The Crown. He was in the prime. He was one of the prime ministers in The Crown, and he's been in like just a lot. He's a great actor. I can't remember his name, but he's in a lot of movies and shows. So he plays a great role.
Yeah, beloved British actor whose name is completely escaping me, and I feel terrible for that
I'm
right
terrible
now.
with names. I'm like Paul. I'm terrible with names. So
yeah, I do spend a lot of my time going, hey, it's that guy.
Yep.
And go straight on IMDb.
Exactly. Yep.
Who's he been? What else has he been in? And it drives my wife insane. She's like, "Are you even watching this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm watching. I just need to know." But yeah, no, it's there were elements of the inner workings, and there were a couple of things in there that I think just didn't fit Andor, like the whole. Actually, no, that was in Mando. I'm getting that completely mixed up. I was thinking that it's a trap joke. Which for me just really didn't land. It wasn't appropriate for the context of the show. But no, that was.
I think Andor, if they would have done and released the episodes in three bulks of 3, I think that would have helped a lot, because there were, like, you know, when you got to that penultimate, or when you got to that quote unquote the third finale, the 3, it really helped. It was like 3 mini arcs that were there. I enjoyed it because I just love like the spy aspect of it. I enjoy. I'm looking forward to seeing even almost how sinister the rebellion came, because they showed so many aspects of that in Rogue One, and how they did things that were considered, you know, heinous and criminal. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see how that goes. You know, the prison episode was just an awesome episode. I thought that was really great. I kind of had a feeling that they were building parts for the Death Star. I thought that was the direction they were going in. So
yeah, and there's part of me that kind of wishes they hadn't shown it, but there's part of me that is so glad that they did, because that image of the dismantled super laser is that was my computer wallpaper like that afternoon.
Well, you see the background there, that's my wall, my canvas art on the wall there. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, as you say, there's the moment where I can't swim, and you don't get any resolution to that. You don't know if he was captured or killed, or he had to go, or someone helped him. I'm reserving judgment, and it's always that thing of, whenever I talk about it with someone, I go, it wasn't really for me, but then I talk about so many things I loved in it, and I go, maybe it was for me. And but yeah, it wasn't for me, but I didn't not like it.
Right.
It's still good Star Wars, and yeah, there's things in there, there's characters in there. I think one of the things I didn't like about it is they made it a grey area, and that was one of the things I didn't like about Rogue One, and I love Rogue One. but it's one of those things of like, no, I watch Star Wars for good guys and bad guys. I don't want a gray area, and I want a clean redemption.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be any repercussions for it, and I know that is not how life works.
Yeah.
But that's why
that's why you go to those things to get
that's why I go to a galaxy far, far away for that stuff.
Yep.
And I know that's kind of a flawed way of looking at realistic storytelling, but it's very much kind of what I like about it. I like the fact that Yoda is incorruptible, but I also love the fact that he has shown glimpses of it, whether that be in season 6 of the Clone Wars, where it was visually seen sort of the little dark Yoda, and there's also a moment in a book called Dark Rendezvous, which is very much Legends now, but he goes and meets Dooku on Sereno, and Dooku tries to turn him, and Yoda gives him a glimpse of what that would look like, and it terrifies and horrifies Dooku. And if you ever see me on Discord or anything, my profile picture is an artist's conception of a Sith Yoda. I love the idea of that, but I also love the fact that he's completely uncorruptible.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I love the fact that Anakin was redeemed. So I make no sense in terms of what I like.
I know.
But I also appreciate very good writing, which Andor absolutely was.
My dad's one of those people, like, he went and saw them, he's in the 70s, saw the original ones, but didn't watch anything afterwards. And I tried to tell him, like, Dad, The Mandalorian is a show that you could watch without having to know anything about Star Wars. It's just a great show, like, because he loves Westerns. I'm like, you would love this. I'm like, Andor is a show I think you would like too, because it's, it's a kind of like a crime suspense type thing. You really don't need to know a lot about Star Wars. You don't need to, like, I appreciate the Easter eggs and all that stuff and the tie-ins, and I know things, but like to me, those are two stories that you could really just be just a fan of good writing, good storytelling, good acting, and enjoy those. So
yeah, and that's one thing that I love that Star Wars are starting to do, is they're telling stories in different genres, and it's something that Marvel specifically have done as well. They've done different types of film genres, they've done different types of TV genres, and I've enjoyed the majority of them. There've been a couple of not great entries, but that's a different podcast, I think. We could go off on a completely different tangent on Marvel. What's been, we've obviously talked through Star Wars through a lot of the years, but what has been, as this is going to be sort of the first release on the first day of 2024, what's been your favorite thing from Star Wars in 2023?
It's for me, it's been it was really tied between the Bad Batch and Ahsoka. I loved the Bad Batch became I said that Rebels was my favorite story, but the Bad Batch, I fell in love with that show and can't get enough of it. And then when Ahsoka came along, I always loved that character. Once I started to see the Clone Wars, like, I fell in love with that character and the what she brought. And then when she showed up in Mando, I was like, oh my goodness, they might be really doing this. And they did. And how it really became a Rebels season 5 per se, and tying in Thrawn, and that was just chef's kiss for me. So, I heard all these things about, he's going to look different, he's going to change his cadence and all that. I didn't see any differences with him, and I thought he was absolutely perfect and just as menacing. So, and as somebody who plays, I love the Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, and how they tied, like, those video games were like that. I was there for day one for that, and Jedi Survivor was an amazing game, and I thought, oh my goodness, the beginning of Ahsoka looks like you're playing, the levels, these stupid puzzles that I can't solve, that I got to look up on YouTube how to figure out, how they just tie a lot of those things in, but it makes sense, because why I love it so much is because those were all things I really enjoyed in the last year. So yeah, I really can't wait to see, like, where this goes with Ahsoka, because like I said, Rebels was such a such a fun thing for me, because it was right about when my son, just that was his first experience of Star Wars, was Rebels. So he was about 4 years old, and Disney was promoting it, and he started watching it. And for me, that's always sentimental from that aspect. But I love that story. So being able to continue that, and then when you get live action Clone Wars in there, basically in those episodes with Anakin, and the music, and that whole scene with the waves, and Jason saying, "Can you hear the lightsabers?" and the music. Oh, those are two episodes again I probably rewatched 20 times. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I've watched them several times myself. It's they're just brilliant Star Wars, and Star Wars in its truest sense. You've got mystical elements, you've got people on the ground sort of fighting, and without the force powers, without all the space magic and stuff like that. You've got the ship battles, you've got it all in those couple of episodes. And it's to then get like the Clone Wars live action.
And it was so meta when he's like, this is the Clone Wars. Yeah, it is. Like, I'm like, yeah. I just like threw my hands up there. I'm like, that's perfect. That's just absolutely perfect writing.
Yeah, and there's that moment where it goes back to Mandalore, the Battle of Mandalore, and he looks around and he goes, I don't remember this one. And it's just like, no, but you should have been there. Yes. Like if you'd been there, you wouldn't have fallen. And there's so much beautiful poetry in that, in the way it's done, and the way it was delivered, and the actress they got for young Ahsoka, who obviously is being lauded as someone to watch for the future for her Gamora depiction as well. Yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. It's been a great year. It has been a great year for Star Wars storytelling across all formats. Obviously, a lot of people focus on the visual medium. There's been a number of great books as well, and certainly comic arcs as well. So I'll probably dive into those a little bit, or future James will anyway, when I hand back to him. But yeah, there's been some absolutely fantastic storytelling, and then so yeah, it's been good. I've got one other question which I am going to blindside you with a little bit. Do you have any Christmas Star Wars based traditions?
Well, that's a good question. And a joking Christmas tradition is that my grandmother years ago got me a Stormtrooper nutcracker. So because my wife doesn't really like Star Wars, that has to go to its own special place. So that's like one of mine. But I do have my own Christmas tree that is just, and my wife supports this, but it goes in its own room. It is a Christmas tree that is just ornaments of Marvel, Star Wars, and DC. So it is just like those characters that go on there. So that is the tree that I put up, and that is my kids kind of help me with that, but it is only allowed to have those decorations. Now those decorations are not allowed on any of the other trees, but that's my that's
the compromise.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you if you don't want to give out sort of handles or anything? That's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm not really. My social media, I'm not somebody who posts things. So following me honestly is a waste of time. I think I'm on there as Darth Ridiculous. That's my my Twitter handle, but or the alias I go by. But yeah, I'm just a consumer. I'm not here to plug anything. The only thing that I'm here to plug is that just be positive about Star Wars.
Absolutely, that's something I wholeheartedly agree with, and yeah, absolutely. One of the key ethoses of this podcast is I want to try and stay positive.
Well, I wish your podcast very well. Best wishes to you, and hope you have a wonderful holiday. And those listening, I hope they have a wonderful holiday, safe, and hope everybody gets some time to spend with family and friends. But best wishes to you on this, because I love, like I said, I love taking in this content and hearing what people think about stuff.
Thank you very much, Josh. And I'll hand back to future James now.
All right, sounds good.
And another big thank you to Josh for taking the time to have that conversation with me. It was very much appreciated and very much enjoyed as well. So moving on to what I have done in Star Wars in the last month. It's been quite a busy month with other things going on, so I wasn't sure if I was going to have huge amounts to discuss, but I have been able to get some stuff done. TV-wise, I've managed to finish off my 2003 Clone Wars rewatch with Clone Wars Volume 2, which I think is just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. I love the animation style. I love the stories that are included within it. I just love it. I've just really, really enjoyed that entire series from start to finish. And whilst it's not canon, whilst it misses out an awful lot, it gives everything you need leading into Revenge of the Sith, and it even gives a reason for General Grievous's cough and the invasion of Coruscant and everything else. It's really, really good. It adds a lot of texture and context to the Anakin-Padme relationship. It explains why 3PO's dusty, silvery coating is all of a sudden gold in episode 3. It's just a fantastic series, and I would really, really recommend it. On the comic side of things, I finished off Star Wars Volume 12, Rebels and Rogues. It was decent. It was better than the Volume 11, in my view. And if you've really enjoyed that run, then great. I need to finish off Volume 13, and then I can get into the ones set in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would. I would. Completionist, I would definitely recommend it. In terms of the actual quality of storytelling, maybe not. It is, in my view, quite skippable. I don't feel I missed anything by not reading it to this point. So that's a bit disappointing, really, on my side of things. But it was decent enough. Single issues, I've read Dark Droids number 4. Very, very enjoyable. And yeah, it's just an ongoing comic series. Don't have much more to say about it, really. I need to finish off the set, which I think has been delivered to my e-reader. D-Squad 2, 3, and 4. I think I've said previously I was really apprehensive about this run, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be. It was really not sure how it was going to go because of the D-Squad connotations in the Clone Wars arc, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I'm not a particularly big fan of droids, I would say. But all of my notes on this one are very much... They center around 2 very specific droids, which is 000 and BT-1. Fantastic additions. 000 specifically being the protocol droid, but also being a murderous psychopath. It just makes me laugh every single time. It's an evil 3PO, which is just hilarious. And overall, the arc itself was good. We get a return from a Clone Wars character, and R2 is good fun. I enjoy R2. He's a good little droid. He's a good little character. I've never been a 3PO fan, but as I say, 000 more than makes up for it. And then I also read Shadows of Starlight number 3, which I can't say enough good things about this portion, Phase 1 and so far Phase 3 of the High Republic. I can't say enough good things. I think we've really created some brilliant Jedi characters and civilian characters as well. And a villain in Marchion Ro that is living up to every villain before him in terms of intimidation, cleverness, scheming, anger, hatred. All of those real negative emotions are all in effect in Marchion Ro, and he's a brilliantly written villain as well. And I'm just thoroughly enjoying the High Republic, really am. Phase 2 was good. I did still enjoy it, but so far Phase 2 has been the weakest for me. But anything centering around Marchion Ro and that group of Jedi, Avar, Stellan, Elzar, Buriaga, all of them, absolutely fantastic, and would highly recommend those. Books wise, I've managed to get through a decent amount of books actually, with Path of Destruction, which shortly upcoming. We will be going on a deeper dive as part of the Spark Jedi Council over on Source Pages, with fellow Jedi Council members Haley, Brian, and Todd. So keep your ears peeled for that one. I always recommend Path of Destruction. I think it's a brilliant trilogy by Drew Karpyshyn, and yeah, we'll go into more detail on the Spark Jedi Council episodes. I also picked up For Light and Life. There's a moment in Shadows of Starlight number 3, which has one of those sort of, for more information on this matter, consult this book. And it was the For Light and Life, which I've had on my reading list for a little while. And I thought, you know what? It's only 7.5 hours. I don't listen at one time's pace. So it ended up being about 5-hour listen, which was good for me. Quite a few bits and pieces to do. And short stories can either be really good or can be really bad. If there's a number of short stories in a row, it can feel quite long. But thankfully, this kept me going most of the time. There's the odd story which I could have not listened to and wouldn't have really noticed. But overall, a decent book and collection of short stories. And there is one which I believe is either the last story or the second to last story, which answers a thread which has been hanging since Phase 1 of the High Republic. So I would recommend it. Otherwise, that story in particular, that short story in particular, can give you quite a lot of background information as to why the thing happens. And I'm trying really hard to skirt around what it is, but it's quite difficult in terms of talking about it. It's the fate of a certain character who was left hanging, and then, if you listen to the Eye of Darkness, is mentioned quite early on, just fairly casually, the fate of this character, and that fate is then explored in Shadows of Starlight, and then again is actually detailed in For Light and Life. Second to last or last story. It's a very, very good one. And for me, they've come out in a little bit weird order, because I think they should. I don't know when For Light and Life actually came out. So it might just be I've consumed them in the wrong order, which is probably more accurate. And at the time of recording, I am continuing with, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. I am enjoying it. I've got around about 3 hours left on my audiobook. And it is enjoyable. I am enjoying it. There's the odd story, again, much like all of these things, where I'm not that bothered about it. But yeah, I am enjoying it overall. It's better than A New Hope's from a certain point of view, and I'm sure I will pick up the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view as well. I do have a couple of other books in my reading list before that, so we'll see. We'll see when I get to that. In terms of games, I've been carrying on with my Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes account, and I have finally unlocked Galactic Legend Rey, and I am currently powering her up. She's currently at gear 12, and I am pushing hard for the rest of her gear to get her into relics. And then I am desperately trying to get Zeta Mats for Galactic Legend Supreme Leader Kylo Ren grind. I've tried the first tier of that a couple of times, and absolutely having the floor wiped with me. Doesn't seem to matter what I do. So I think I'm just going to have to take a little step back and carry on with the Zeta Mat farming and push on with that. I am also continuing on the Galactic Legend Jabba the Hutt requirements, and it's just a daily grind. It's just a daily grind. Slow and steady wins the race. I'm having a lot of fun actually watching Sean from Galactic War Report's Twitch stream. His Twitch name is The Other Sean, so go give him a follow. I've been watching him stream his GAC attacks recently. Been learning quite a lot actually as well. So Sean, appreciate that. It's helping me. But I've also been playing Fallen Order. I had tried to play it previously. I don't know. Maybe I was just in the wrong frame of mind when I picked it up previously. But I have picked it up and gone, all right, I need to do this. I need to know what this story is. It's highly regarded. And I think as soon as I got past kind of the tutorial bit where you're sort of running around the scrapyard and you do the first couple of worlds and you're still very much learning. You don't really have any powers. You don't really have any stats or anything like that. I've absolutely fallen in love with this game, and I just wish I had more time to play it. It's, I think if someone asked me to describe it, I would say it's Star Wars Tomb Raider. And that might be That might be very common knowledge at this point in time, but and apologies if it is. But I am enjoying it. I've made it as far as Kashyyyk, and I'm probably about halfway through Kashyyyk at the moment. So I know I've still got a long way to go, but I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the continued journey. So that's it for me this month in terms of what I've done in Star Wars. So looking at what you guys have done this month in Star Wars, Darth Ridiculous on Twitter, who is Josh, who we've just spoken to. Eagle-eared listeners will actually have realised that I completely forgot to ask him what he has done this last month in Star Wars, and so that is very much on me. Apologies for that. But he was very kind and did let me know that he has rewatched Revenge of the Sith. He's added some more ornaments to his Star Wars, Marvel, and DC tree. He's got the new Lego Phase 2 clone set, and he has been getting into the Black Series 6-inch figures. And he's also built the Lego Death Star recently, which is absolutely fantastic. We have also heard from good friend of the podcast, Brian, who's one of the Jedi Council members over at the Source Pages podcast, where he has picked up the Star Wars High Republic Character Encyclopedia, as well as picked up the Star Wars Heritage Pack, which includes Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, Republic Commando, and Star Wars Racer, which is a game that I am very much looking forward to picking up at some point. Brian has actually also sent in a voice note as well.
What I did this week, let's see, I finished, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi, the novel that has a whole bunch of little short stories about characters that were in the movie. It's canon. I finished Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade. I also watched A Disturbance in the Force, which was produced by our buddy Kyle Newman, which is about the Star Wars holiday special, how it got made, why it got made, all that other stuff. I put together a whole bunch of, I think about 4 of them now, Star Wars holiday-themed puzzles, and glued them and framed them, so they're going to be up for our holiday season. Put up all of my Funkos and Star Wars Black Series 6-inch holiday figures, that decorated stuff, and let's see. That's about it for now.
Thank you for that, Brian. Always good to hear your voice, and always appreciate the time you take to send us over your updates. Fellow council member Hayley has not had much time for Star Wars this last month or so. She's been incredibly busy with other projects and other primers and whatnot. But she has read Darth Bane Path of Destruction, which we'll be going into a deeper dive on the Source Pages Sacred Jedi Text episodes. And last but not least, Todd, he's been reading Darth Bane Path of Destruction. He's met up with some fellow Star Wars podcasters from the Rebel Force Radio guys. Finished decorating his Star Wars Christmas tree. He's bought some Secret Santa gifts for other Star Wars fans. He's watched A Disturbance in the Force and has thoroughly enjoyed it. Disturbance in the Force is a fan-funded documentary around the Star Wars holiday special.
And the last bit of feedback we have here is from Sean from the Galactic War Report, and it's a voice note.
Hey, what's up, Star Wars fans? This is the other Sean from Galactic War Report, a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes podcast that's better than some and worse than others. My week in Star Wars has been a fun one. Just got off the big, family Christmas celebration. I've still got my sister is coming into town this next weekend, so we'll do a little more decking the halls, so to speak. But, as always, Star Wars is a part of my holiday because everyone in my family knows. Just buy me some Star Wars stuff and I'll be happy. As far as ornaments, I always get some kind of Star Wars ornament. I got a little 6-pack of Hallmark, cutesy little ornaments. There's a little Chewie, a Yoda, a BB-8, a Porg, a little teeny Vader. It's fun. So I've got, my office decked out a little bit more with that. I also got this really, as I was opening it, I thought, neat, cool, but when am I going to use it? This Millennium Falcon multi-tool. It sounds kind of neat, but holy smokes if I don't use that several times a day. At our family Christmas, I was the popular guy because if someone had a present that was hard to open, I pass them the Falcon and they're in it. Just like that. So that was fun. We do a lot of scratch off lotto tickets too. So the little scraper thing on the back was pretty nice. So yeah, that was my favorite gift. Outside of that, well, my favorite Star Wars gift. Outside of that, I have been collecting those Ahsoka Retro Collection 3 3/4 inch figures, and I've almost got them all. I like to find them in the wild, so I've been going around store to store to store, and I really thought I was going to have to break down and buy a few online, but it looks like I might be able to pull this off. I still need a chopper, but I've got several stores in the area I can still hit up, so we'll see. I know the shelves are a little barren after Christmas, but, you know, hopefully the Force will guide me or something. I hope you have had an awesome Star Wars week yourselves, or just an awesome whatever week. Maybe, you know, you had a particularly Star Trek week, and I hope that was great, too. Check out new episodes of Galactic War Report on Fridays, wherever you get your podcasts, and I'm on Twitch at The Other Sean. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for that, Sean. It's much appreciated. And that concludes our feedback for this month.
So thank you very much, guys. Really, really appreciate the time you take. And anyone else out there wants to get in contact with the show, share what you're doing, just have a chat, you can do so on Twitter, which is at Star Wars YOU-pod, YOU, or via email at starwarsyoupod@gmail.com. And if you like what you're hearing, if you can drop us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Apple is best because it does help the algorithm the most, but Spotify is also really good. But anywhere you catch your podcast and you can leave a review, please do so. And before we say goodbye to 2023 and hello to 2024, it would be remiss of me to not mention the friends of the podcast. They are Star Wars The Saga Continues, Star Wars Splash Page, Star Wars 7x7, Children of the Watch, Source Pages, A Reading Collective, and Galactic War Report. These are the ones I listen to on a regular basis and would recommend these to anyone else. May the Force be with you, always.